Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for 2021's Animation Exchange. Welcome to Animated Moms. In this panel, we are going to celebrate and highlight the special challenges of motherhood in the game industry, as well as what support systems are essential to retaining our working moms, even through global pandemics. My name is Katie Better, mother to a toddler and an animator with Rockstar New York. I'll be moderating today, and let's meet our panel. Camille, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Camille Chu. I am the lead animator at Monolith Productions, and I have a 2-year-old.
Go ahead, Leah.
Sorry, was there more?
No. Sorry. Hi. Sorry. Hi, I'm Leanne Cruz, and I'm a principal animator at Polyarc Games, and I'm the mother to an almost 2-year-old.
Marianne?
I'm Marianne Hayden. I am a story animator at Naughty Dog. I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old.
And Sabrina.
I'm Sabrina. I'm an animator. I'm currently not anywhere, and I have a 3-year-old at home.
Thank you, everyone. Let's get rolling. So, just to set the stage here for our audience, can you describe what the landscape looked like for each of you as you decided to take those first steps into parenthood in this industry? Whoever wants to go first.
Decide to take a step into parenthood because the first one was a wonderful surprise. So we we're just kind of thrown into it. But I had only been working at Naughty Dog for like maybe a year, and then and I'd been hired full time, and then I got pregnant. So it was kind of a bit of a shock to the system, especially going into maternity leave. It was like I'd been working full time for a long time, and then all of a sudden I was like stay-at-home mom on maternity leave, and my sense of self kind of went out the window.
I feel that.
That was my beginning experience.
Yeah, it was. It's kind of funny. Like I was on the opposite end of the spectrum where I've been planning a family for a bit with my husband, and like what happened was that I knew in the game industry, there's not a lot of moms, like that that are visible. So it was very hard to kind of get a grasp of what was expected. But once I started working at this one studio, V1 Interactive, and I saw how much they valued, their employees, that they really take care of them, I really felt like, oh, this could be a good time to start a family. So
it was something you specifically looked for.
I specifically, absolutely. It's kind of crazy. Some studios you can kind of get the vibe that, maybe it's not, family friendly. And then some studios you can definitely sense that. And actually, when I interview with studios, I tend to ask, how many people are parents, that way I could see if there would be an understanding if an emergency popped up or, kids have to go to school and whatnot. So it was kind of interesting. Like I got really fortunate to be at a studio that really did have that culture in place.
Nice. Yeah, you go ahead, Sabrina.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, for us, we talked about starting a family. I was working in the Bay Area. I was maybe 10 years. I'd been at several studios, and the one thing that we had seen a lot of was sort of a lot of layoffs and a lot of reorganizations, and it was always scary. Like, what if we start and then something happens? But then at one point we just decided to go for it, and I actually did get my game got canceled right when I got pregnant. So I found myself sort of like applying for jobs in my first trimester, which was interesting. And but I landed at a studio, and I told them right away, because the deadline for the game was going to be right when I was due, and I was like, listen, I may not be able to finish the contract. And they're like, that's fine, here's a laptop, like if you have to work from home for the last couple weeks. And I was like, all right, sweet. So it worked out at the end, but it was definitely a couple months of just fingers crossed.
Oh my goodness. They expect you to work from the hospital? What?
I think I did work.
That's really nice of them. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Camille.
We also were planning our family getting started, and so planned that we actually ticked it to be after the ship of one of our products. We're like, there's no way we can deal with it, during those like final end crunches. So we didn't have a lot of moms at the studio for me to really know what the lay of the landscape was, and I think I was really ignorant to even know how to take a look at the landscape and know what I was looking at. It was just something that you kind of learned as you go.
I can definitely relate to that feeling of just kind of loneliness. At my previous studio I was at, it was very few women to begin with. We had a couple dads, but only one of the dads there actually had a working spouse. So you kind of get that simmering feeling of what that expectation is for you. But even asking about like benefits like maternity leave, I was really scared for a really long time if that would kind of mark me and stifle any advancement or promotion or anything like that. So I mean, a lot of this fear was in my head, mind you, because the story just does turn for the better. But even so, like I kind of kept my pregnancy on the down low until I could secure a transfer to my current studio in the city, where there was more women, and the one mother I knew at the company who was a producer for us on set, I looked up to her a lot, and so I like that was the only person I knew of, though. The one. There's always the one. And I can totally relate to being pregnant through like crunch, basically. Like we wanted a family for at least a year before we actually like said, this is it. We're starting a family. And it was absolutely planned around when our game was going to release. Like we shipped the game and I shipped the baby a month later. Like it was absolutely planned.
Whoa,
So
you planned it tight. I had a coworker that planned to have their baby after ship, but then the ship moved, and it was like, oh
it's always the fear, right? It's always the fear.
When you have a happy accident, a happy surprise, then you miss crunch. I missed the entire crunch of Uncharted 3 because I was on maternity leave. I
Thank
mean, I
you,
missed
baby.
working on the game, but I also had a baby, so both ways.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's really funny because I know I got a lot of pressure from my parents for starting a family. Get those grandbabies, but it's really funny to me how hard I tried to plan. Like I have to plan around this shoot and this trip abroad and da 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 da, and you just reach a point where you're like, I can't. Like, is everything going to push this farther and farther along? And you just kind of reach a point where you're like, yeah, no, got it. It's time. And you just know.
I was gonna say it's really. Oh no, it's really nice, like knowing, like I'm not alone in that, like where you're trying to plan, you're doing family planning, but then you're looking at all these factors of working as an animator in the game industry, right? Like you're looking at these ship dates, you're looking at these mocap shoots, you're looking at like when things are due, and you're kind of like, where do I fit that baby in there?
Yeah,
It's like a ridiculous thing to even think, but yeah.
Yeah.
The identity that we create for ourselves as we advance in our careers is a big deal because, from kindergarten onwards, we're essentially training for the workforce. We're training to build our career. And when all of the gender roles and the unconsciously the people around you and the expectations that they have for you are saying that's going to end when you have a kid, that it's a lot of mental gymnastics that you kind of have to do. The like unspoken expectation of, okay, you're gonna quit, right? Like it hurts. It hurts a bit.
Yeah, I was nervous to tell anyone I was pregnant at work. Like I was like, I'm gonna just wait until like it's really like we get our ultrasound, everything's like going good. Like I waited after the first trimester because I knew it would change. Like, to me, I felt like it would change everything, in terms of perhaps work expectations. But yeah, like, it really depends on, also your environment and like the people around you, because I think sometimes I did place a lot of expectations more on myself than probably anyone else did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you don't want to let your team down either.
Absolutely.
But you're starting a family. You're not letting them down. But this is what we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, the moms who are pregnant now and working from home, that's something that they might be able to not have to worry about, is that when do I tell them it has to be before I start showing or things are going to get awkward. Just see from here up.
Yeah, right? You could have a baby. They'll never know in this time of COVID. Oh my gosh.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well,
So I was kind of curious, as you all were kind of navigating through work with starting, we started a family. I know for a lot of us in the US, maternity leave is really tamped down. Like I, for example, had 3 months of like full pay, which is extremely generous, but also helped out with like New York paid family leave. What did your leave situations look like? And um, were they already established by your company's policies, or were you able to give any input on them?
so for in my case, when I was working at the studio when I was pregnant, I was contract, and because I hadn't been there long enough, I didn't qualify for, say, California paid leave.
Mm.
So I wound up with like the minimal. I had to take most of the time unpaid. But on the flip side, the company's actual policy, for like my husband, for example, was very generous. So I was sort of like, oh, that sounds great. I couldn't take advantage of it, but there was something about being a contract worker and kind of facing not having having access to sort of those full benefits and having to navigate, especially like just getting the short-term disability and how long that lasts, and then like you're basically taking the time like as you can afford it. So yeah, it was an interesting experience.
That brings up a good point to our lovely audience, is that yes, pregnancy is a short-term disability. That is how we bringing life into
Classify
this
it.
world is categorized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went in to ask HR what the maternity package was, and they were like, "Huh? Don't know. Let me get back to you." Because I was like, there was only one other mom at the studio, and at the time I was pregnant, her child was 12, so nobody else had had any children in between that time frame, and they just didn't have a plan ready to tell me about. But when I told the head of the studio that I was pregnant, he was like, "Take as much time as you leave. Your job will be here when you come back." And so I did. And not all of it was paid. I ended up taking like 6 months, maybe 7 with my first kid.
That's
And
fantastic.
then like 4 months with my second, and then 1 month part time to like ease back into it. Cause I noticed with my first kid going from full time being at home to full time working was like a real jolt to the system, and having like an ease in was so helpful. And they'd never done that for anybody before, so I felt really lucky that they had offered me that opportunity. They've just been like super supportive the entire time. Granted, the California benefits weren't like, I think I only got my coverage was only like 75%, and then recently Sony upped it to like 100%. I was like, is that retroactive? But no.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I
they've been supportive.
I was really lucky too, because like I was saying before, like V1 was very supportive of their employees, and I was the first female hire on the team, and then I was the first mom. So
Oh boy.
yeah, so I
Me
got
too.
so
Yeah.
yeah. The owner of the studio, Marcus Leto, he was like, he was super receptive about it. He was like, yeah, you know, let's discuss like how we want to structure our maternity leave. And I actually got to be a part of that, you know, trying to establish a maternity leave program for our studio at the time. And we kind of like, I actually did a lot of researching, and that's actually how I met Katie, because I was trying to get information, you know, like how did other studios do it. And it was really great that I was able to construct this thing, and basically ended up doing 3 months paid leave, and then kind of the ramp on that you're describing, Marianne, where after the 3 months leave, I would have 2 months of ramping in, where I did like, you know, maybe 1 day in the office, 4 days at home, and then slowly kind of gradated it back to like, you know, 3 and 2, and then eventually full time back. So it was wonderful.
Yeah, that ramp helps a lot.
It does. Absolutely.
Yeah, Monolith was similar in that it was 12 weeks paid. Washington also has a couple of benefits that happen simultaneously. But overall, the support, I think what you guys are all saying is what was key for my benefit support, which is that you had managers and companies that supported and were flexible. Like they were, you know, saying you do what you need to do, which is exactly what my manager said as well. It was like, you know, whatever you need. We officially do 12 weeks, but if you need more time, you take more time. But benefits, I think that type of support being per manager, per company, I think is something that we definitely need to be better at, you know, across the
Oh,
board in the
absolutely.
industry. Like I definitely, if I didn't receive that support, I don't know if I would have gone back if my boss hadn't been flexible. And so my company would have lost an animator and a mom. So I hope that, you know, the story that you guys say is something that can be more often said for women in the industry, and it becomes more formal, not just because we have good managers.
Oh,
It's
team
so
by
true.
team absolutely makes a lot more sense. And I think it also presents a really good opportunity to bond with your employees. Like, we officially get the 3 months at Rockstar. My manager was kind enough to not charge me PTO for the zillion of doctor's appointments that you have to go to while you're
Yeah.
pregnant. That was like, the kindest thing anybody could have thought of, honestly. When we couldn't find daycare, 2 months unpaid leave, no problem. And it wasn't like I was gone and my coworkers weren't talking to me either. They would ping me to check on me, like an actual person, not just somebody who disappeared into the void. And the ramping up, absolutely recommend. And I wish this is something that would be a part of the policy, not something that you put it onto the mother to ask for. The producer that I mentioned earlier, the one mother that I knew of at that time, like, she's the one who recommended it to me. And the best advice that she gave me at the time was, when you tell them that you're pregnant, set a date to talk about when you're leaving and when you're coming back, and set those terms up as early and make them as generously in your favor as possible, because like you control that conversation. You have to tell them what's best for you, because that blanket policy
Definitely.
of here's 3 months is not enough.
It's
But
really nice to oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead. Go
I was gonna
ahead.
say it is really nice to hear like both of your experiences being so positive, because I should go back to the laptop thing. The reason they gave me the laptop was so that like if I wasn't feeling well, or if I was like I had to go to an appointment, I could work from home. I didn't have to
Oh,
commute,
good.
and like
So you
yeah,
can work
and
while you're
like
not feeling well. Yeah.
right,
That's a good idea.
and like towards the end when I was getting tired, and like you know if and then once I had my son and I eventually went back, even though I was a contractor, my producer at the time was just amazing and did the same thing without me asking. She said, you know, you have the laptop if you want to just do like a couple days in the office and like see how you feel. I was like, it was just having that kind of support like unprompted is amazing. But I think the advice that your producer gave you, Katie, was also great, that like you have to advocate for what you need, and it's
Hmm.
not, you know,
It's
it's not a
scary.
big ask. It's very scary to ask, and it shouldn't be that scary.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for sharing your stories about starting your family and a little bit about being pregnant at work. Um, I do want to switch gears a little bit so that we can talk a little bit about our time while we're staying at home during the COVID-19 pandemic. Work from home was a really big shift for a lot of us. A lot more time with our families. This is my office, obviously in the kitchen. So I definitely want to hear a little bit about what were some of the expectations versus reality that you had of the work from home situation. And as a mother, how do you feel it's been uniquely challenging for you?
Survive was my high level goal when the pandemic first started, at least.
It
Don't
should
get
be,
fired.
as it should be.
Definitely. It was like the main goal was just to keep the family alive, and myself alive. Because nobody knew what was happening for so many months. Like we all thought, oh, this would be over in like a month or two and we'll go back to work.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know about you guys. I mean, like my kids are school age, so having to be at home and then be the full-time caregiver and teacher and full-time work, it was impossible. It was like I was putting so much stress on myself. I was imagining that work was putting a lot of stress on myself when they really weren't. They were saying, do what you need to do, take care of your family, which was amazing. And then, do the best that you can. And I'm like, I'm trying to do the best that I can, but I feel like it sucks. Like I feel like I'm doing a bad job at everything right now. And then after a while, I was able to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, just do what you can. Be like, try, like, put the family first, and then do your work, do as much as you can, and like that's got to be the best right now. Um, and it's hard. It's hard because that's not my best if I'm at the office. Like kids are away. And the first, I don't want to take up too much time because everybody has a lot to say about this, was like the first part of the school year when September started, August, September, into right before Christmas. That was like really, really hard. And recently I've been fortunate to have my kids go to a pod in a friend's backyard with some other kids, and there's a tutor, and they're not here right now, and I can actually work, and they're not asking me for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all the time.
Mom.
Yeah. And to that point, Katie, there was a time when I was, doing this homeschooling and the teaching at the same time, and I counted between 8:30 and 1 how many times they said mom. 55 times they said mom while I'm working, and they're behind me doing school. And then there were 11 moms, I need help. Mom, I need help, because that means I actually have to leave the computer and like help them with whatever they're helping, because the Zoom teacher can't do it. So, and that was just like one day, and that was like months of that every single day. And so it's just like, okay, between 8 and 1, 8 and 1:30, 8 and 2, like I have to give them what they need because they're in school and their teacher's not here to help them. Anyways,
Yeah.
needless to say, it was very
That's a
challenging,
lot.
and I can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. The kids are starting to go back to school. The CDC has changed the distancing to 3 feet. And so the schools are trying to figure out, oh, how do we get back faster? And I'm like, I don't know, but do it as fast as you fucking can.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my son is well, at the time when the pandemic started, he was 2, and our daycare was still open for a while. So the first few weeks were like, okay, well, working from home. But then once we lost our childcare, daycare is closed. Then it became okay, we're both working at home. We have a 2-year-old who has, he can't really entertain himself that long a period
Nope.
of time. So it's like the day started as a marathon. It started at like 6 in the morning and it ended at 9 at night, and there was no like,
Oh,
there wasn't that downtime, that commute time, or that focus time when you knew like at any moment he might run in the room, exactly, and like come sit in my lap. And sometimes I'd actually like animate with him in my lap.
Yep.
He thought that was fun. But yeah, I think like losing the access to childcare and not having family nearby can be an enormous challenge when you have both maybe both partners working at home.
Yeah. Like the first couple months, that was like the same situation for us as well. And like, it's funny because I think back to like people going, oh, well, you get to spend more time with your kids and everything. And like, and then you can still work. And I'm like, that's an optimistic perspective. Like,
You're funny.
yeah, like, I mean, God bless my son, but like, it's hard to get any work done, like like I had, at the time he was 1 and it was like, okay, like I got to make sure he doesn't kill himself while I'm trying to like animate and,
Yeah.
get all this like cinematics going. So, yeah, what my husband and I ended up doing, we had to split the day. It was like, it wouldn't be like a full work day, of course, but I would work from 7 to 1, and then he would work from 1 to 7, and we just hot potato our son, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
something similar
Same
to that.
thing. I think it was. Yeah.
You have to. You have to.
Yeah. I
It,
mean, you have to share that responsibility.
Yeah. Ours was a game of
sure.
adaptation.
Yeah.
Camille, were you going to say something? Uh-oh.
Oh no.
She's back.
Yeah.
There you are.
Might have a little lag.
Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
just same thing. As you guys talking about game of adaptation, where you try one thing. We built our entire office into a playroom in the hopes that our 2-year-old our 1-year-old at the time could just play in the background while having meetings. But as you guys probably all know, that's like having somebody like talk in your ear while you're trying to like concentrate and like do a thing. And so it was like, okay, that didn't work. Let's try doing the
Yeah.
shifts. But then
As soon as
you're,
the Zoom ding goes, it's all of a sudden my coworkers
obviously
see
you're going
this.
to have meetings that conflict.
Mine would come up behind me and just be like,
Yeah.
"Hi, everybody."
Yeah.
Mine would just run it and say like, it was like that show, like say the darndest things. He would just like whatever he could say, like that was just the worst possible timing. He would run in and say it was great. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
No, like
Sorry, Camille,
literally
finish your
yesterday.
What's that?
Literally yesterday. I was in a meeting, and after school was over, and my daughter came up to my office and sits on my lap, and she's like, "Mom, you're stinky." And I was like, "Great, like everybody just heard that. Thank you." Like, and then my son did the same thing 5 minutes later. I was like, I guess maybe I should end the meeting, go take a shower. Because I'm not in the office, you can't smell me.
Yeah, definitely. For us, I was actually sick with COVID when all the lockdowns first started. So my coworkers were luckily very, very understanding of that. But when my son lost his daycare, or rather, we pulled him out of daycare. I should, now that I remember, because he was sick too. But we reached a point really early in the pandemic where the toddler will realize, when mommy sits in front of the foldy screen machine, that she's not going to pay as much attention to me. So silly things with meetings and trying to turn the power off on my laptop, and we had an instance where like he grabbed the Ethernet cord and full force tugged it,
Yeah,
and it
we
went
did
flying
too.
off the table. Yeah, that's the good times. But we reached a point, maybe I think the second month into the stay at home, where I was frustrated with him. He was very frustrated with me. And as you described, Marianne, that feeling of you're doing everything wrong at the same time, you just can't get anything right. Like I went to a very dark place for a while because that feeling of like resentment against your own child.
I did too.
And then the
Yeah.
fact that you're resenting your child
Yeah.
for work, for a job, is it's not a great feeling. And I'm very fortunate that my coworkers were very understanding and gave me a lot of space when it came to processing a lot of this. But it's that realization that like we really needed childcare like ASAP was it was really depressing. for the time with just how unavailable and how unprepared a lot of things around us were. So we resorted to a lot of TV time. Like they say, oh yeah, your kid's not supposed to be watching TV till like what, 5 or something, and it's like here's a 2-year-old who's essentially being raised on Sesame Street.
Well, what else are we supposed to do? I mean, we're still doing it. I mean, after school, it's not like I can stop working. There's this time chunk they're done with school, and then I'm like, well, I got to work for another 4 hours. So what are you going to do? Legos for 4 hours? That got old 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, like I try every day. I'm like, here's a little schedule. Make sure you do these things before you go on a device. And then I'm like, I put like time frames down, like 30 minutes for this, 15 minutes for this, 30 minutes for this. And like yesterday, my son was like, I did it all. I was like, so if you add up everything I told you to do, that should have taken you an hour and a half. It was 30 minutes later. And he's like, I did it all. I'm like, no, he's 10. I'm like, you can do math. I know you didn't do it all. So, you know, and it's like, what else are we supposed to resort to? We can't just like, they have to stay here.
It's hard because I feel like work from home's always been, especially for games, I feel work from home has always been this like, benefit that we've always like dreamt of. And as a parent, having that flexibility is huge. Kid gets sick, doctor's appointments, just having that ability is fantastic. And good Lord, I hope we get to keep it as an option once things start, you know, getting back to normal. But wow, it was a very rude awakening.
But that's a work from home without children. Like that would be amazing if they were at school all day and there was childcare, right? And I'm seeing a tiny bit of that now with my kids being in the pod, which has just been a lifesaver for my sanity, for my kids' mental health. I've told you all earlier, but for the first few months, my son would cry on the couch for hours because it was a shock to their system too, not just ours. You know, them being pulled from school, being forced to be on a screen all the time, not seeing their friends right when they're starting to build social connections and making friends. And that was just like for everybody, like everything changed. And so it's really hard on the mental well-being of children.
And we as mothers take that burden on. It's our responsibility. It's but naturally,
like kid who's in a ball of tears on the couch every day, except hold him.
Yeah.
No, I do hope that like getting to keep some of the work from home benefits, because for me, I know there's some days when I love being in the studio, I love collaborating, I love seeing my coworkers, and there are days when I just want to get a lot of work done and maybe just not commute and kind of take a breather and be able to focus. And so even uh like after pandemic, say when we go back to sort of normal, um especially like I know as a parent, like that work from home benefit was great when I was a new mom, and it would be great now that my kid's older, and it will continue to be something that I would hope to get.
Yeah, I think the magic word is work from home plus childcare. Yeah.
Truly.
The great thing is there's so much good like animated content that's amazingly educational. Like my son learned all the names of the planets from watching like little preschool shows and stuff. So I'm like, oh, he's learning stuff. So the tablet time is like it's
a little comforting.
benefiting. Yeah.
If you haven't seen Waffles and Mochi yet,
It's so good.
It's so good. It's so good.
This is not a paid endorsement. We just really like it.
No, I have to check that out. Yeah.
It's super fun. So we discussed a little bit of the challenges of transitioning to work from home without childcare. I really would like to talk about what the best kind of support looks like from partners, coworkers, and leadership. In addition to pandemic related things, like what else do you want to see beyond the pandemic, and what do you feel uniquely will help keep mothers around?
I think it's a large part of like like I had such a positive experience at V1 Interactive. Like that to me was already enough to kind of give me hope that there's definitely studios out there that are willing to take care of their people. You know, like the whole like, you know, giving a lengthy paid leave along with, you know, ramp in time. And then also, you know, the whole um, offering it without having the mother ask is also fantastic. And then also just like um, kind of doing it without like making the mother ask for forgiveness. You know, like we're always like putting that pressure on ourselves. We're always like kind of feeling really like we can't be everything we want at 100% capacity. I would love it if the other side, the managers or the partners, what have you, kind of take that mental load away from us in a way where they're like, you know what? Like, I know you're having a rough time. Like, please, really, like, here's the carpet, the red carpet for you. You know, in a way, like, kind of just really offering that help out before we even ask for it. Like,
I
yeah.
feel that like there's a difference between anticipating needs, because that's just like being aware of what's going on around you, and that's a big part of just being empathetic. And you would hope that those are the people in leadership positions, because that's a big part of it, and that's a big part of being an effective leader. One thing I want to add on to that, Leanne, is something that my teammate did for me through this was, and that he continues to do, is just letting me make the decision about my workload and giving me the agency to complete tasks or ask for help if I need it. Just not assuming that, okay, the kid's home, so we're not going to give you any work to do. And then I'm going to sit back here and be like, oh my God, I'm going to get fired because all my tasks are being taken away. Like, let me make that decision. I anticipate, be aware, but also listen. Like
Yeah.
that's huge. So
Mhm.
thanks, team. I love you. You're the best.
And paternity leave, I think, is super huge too. Like in terms of support, like I needed my spouse so much during, you know, every stage. And
Oh
so
yeah.
the, you know, just making sure that it's not just us getting the time to take care of our families and our bodies, but also that our spouses get the time to take care of us and our families. Um, I think it's not only healthy and positive for, you know, us, our children, our families, but I think it'd help in the workplace as well. Kind of just balancing expectations. You know, it's not just women that companies
Oh
are looking
yeah.
at and going, are you going to have a kid and leave soon? It's all parents. You know, get that benefit.
I would
Yeah,
really love to
totally.
see
all
parental leave.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I want to see more paternity leave being encouraged to take. They might be
Yes.
Oh
offered.
yeah.
Yes.
I want to see studios say, please take this. Be with your family. Don't feel
Don't
like you
come
need to
back
be here
early.
because it's crunch. Like instead of saying, oh, it's here, but we're in crunch. It'd be great if you stay. And I'm not saying like that happens in some places, but I want to
The
see it.
pressure's there.
Right, the pressure's there. It's underlying. It's kind of in the subtext, but I think it's important to say no. Like you're having a child, you're bringing a life into this world with your partner. So go be with your family and for these beginning months and set the stage for what your family is going to become. Like take the time.
Yeah.
And
Well said.
most like legislation, like I don't want it again, I don't want it to be the company at the whims of the company. Like a lot of the stuff that we're talking about only applies to if the companies are 50 people plus. Um, I think it really needs to be like a bare minimum amount of support set by our leaders in government to make sure that all parents are covered.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Sabrina?
Um. Oh gosh.
Oh, sorry. I thought you had something.
Oh no. I was like, yeah. I had nothing to really add, but I completely agree with what you're saying about encouraging paternity leave because my husband's paternity leave was pretty generous, but it wasn't it wasn't like as long as like 3 months, but he got a good 6 weeks and he took it. And there was, I don't think he felt at all pressured to not take it. And like, it was, yeah, it was a time that like we wanted to bond as a family. And like, I definitely, I was getting no sleep. I needed him there just to like hold my water cup because I was like, just I was those
Where
first
is
2
it?
weeks where you're like, yeah, you're just like, "What day is it?" Like, I don't
Like,
know,
have I
like,
taken a shower this week?
like,
It's
did
weak,
I brush
right?
my teeth? Like,
I mean, right.
yeah,
In
dear
between
audience,
breastfeeding and like, yeah.
yeah.
dear
It's like, what did
audience.
I eat today?
When babies are born, they need to be fed every 2.5 to 3 hours around the clock. Your babies will not sleep a full night for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a very long time.
Oh, that's
much longer.
optimistic.
Much longer. Yeah, if you're lucky. I was lucky.
They might eat every 2 to 3 hours. They still might want to breastfeed for comfort.
I was
So
gonna
these
say,
kids are just on
yeah.
you all the
All
time.
the time.
I was gonna say
Oh, yeah.
that overlap of the two, like the 2.5 to 2 hours to 3 hour thing. There's like an overlap too, where they're like hanging out with you. You're also burping them, or like they might just want comfort. So actually, you only get like 45 minutes of like
Oh, yeah.
people time, yourself time.
And if you choose breastfeeding, and let's say the milk's not showing up the way it should, your baby's eating, you hand them off, and then you're pumping. It's like, if I could get back all of the time that I put into thinking about milk,
So true.
I did not.
Also known as liquid gold.
liquid gold,
Yeah.
every drop,
Yes.
like just between breastfeeding, pumping at work is a whole other
Pumping at
animal.
work.
Oh
Yeah.
my lord.
It's another job. It's
It
another
is
job,
another job.
right? Yeah, and you can't be stressed out while pumping because that affects your milk supply. So that's really rough when you're like really
I
busy at
did
work.
not know that. I was so disillusioned that I asked my work to set up a computer in an office so that I could pump and work at the same time. I was quickly
Wow.
corrected.
That's very
Oh.
ambitious.
Did everybody
I'm
have
so
a
naive.
space to pump?
Yes. I was very lucky. I told them, I was like, hey, I kind of need this. And they're like, here you go. And I was like, can I have a fridge and a lock and all these other nice things? They're like, here you go. I was like, oh, thanks. It was all ready to go for all the moms coming after me.
That is so
had-
awesome.
We had a room, luckily, that I could use, and I had first dibs on it no matter what. So if people were having a meeting, I could kick them out.
We did have a room, but it was shared. It was shared between, I think there were 5 other moms in like different parts of the company. So we were on a very tight, like back-to-back schedule. So you were like, if I don't make it to my slot, but the other moms were always so flexible and great about it. But I remember actually, Katie, when I met you at that round table, I was sitting there watching the clock because I was like, I have to get back to use the room. And like, I was like ready to
Oh
run
my
out of the door, but then
God.
I was like, oh no, I want to go talk to this person. So like, I forget what I did. I just had to do like a makeshift. When I got back, I was like, it's worth it.
You
Oh
never
man,
told me
somebody
that.
stops you in the hallway while you're trying to make that
Oh,
run for the
no.
room, and you're like, talk to the hand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
so-
So
Oh, go ahead.
quick context. In the middle of my crisis about starting a family, I was pregnant at GDC 2018, and I went to the round table, and I think the question was like, what did you do this year that you're most proud of? And I'm like, well, we did animal mocap, and I got to travel to India and meet the team there. And I'm like, no, I started a family. So I got up and said it, and it was just kind of like dead silent for a second. And I was like, okay. And then at the end of it, Sabrina came up to me and she's like, I'm a mom. And I'm like, oh, the one. She was like glowing. The Angels chorus was singing. It was fantastic. And I had no idea I was keeping you from
That moment, I was there. I didn't know that was you. Oh my gosh. That was you.
Oh, that was me. The crickets were so loud.
It was crickets. It really was. I felt bad because I wanted to say something, but I was so intent watching the clock.
Oh,
Oh my
It's
gosh,
okay.
it's so hard. Your body's on that schedule, right? Like, I mean, if you don't pump, you are extremely uncomfortable, and you could potentially have some health problems if you don't.
Yep.
If you don't,
Like hospital.
yeah, like legit, yeah, you have to go to the hospital. And I remember, like, you have to keep that schedule. That, like, we had to schedule a lot of mocap shoots. Like, we had our own little mocap space in our office downstairs, and our mocap shoots were all day. So it was like, how do I optimize shooting my mocap? Like, because the animators were the actors. So here I am. I'm like thinking about like my like, how do I do this? So I ended up having to like pump in my mocap suit, basically. So I'm sitting
I
there,
did that
all
too.
these like little balls like strategically placed, so I can easily put them back, and hopefully the calibration would stick.
You didn't have to re-rom?
Nope,
Yeah.
no rerumming.
Pros. Oh my gosh, I wish the actors would do that too. Just kidding, I love you. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're getting a little bit to the end of our time. One last question. We've talked about parenting in and out of pandemic and how we've adapted to that. As far as animating, how has being a parent, being a mother, how has it changed your approach to actually animating?
Much more efficient.
Exactly what I was going to say. Schedule my time like to
Mhm.
the hour.
Oh yeah, if you're
definitely.
not planning like 5 steps ahead, like to be able to focus for 5 minutes at a time, you're not doing it right. Like it just feels like it's ingrained after like the gauntlet in the beginning.
I will say, like, one of the best things about having a kid and being an animator is like I watch my son all the time, and he's so expressive, and he moves in such like watching the different ways he moves as he gets older, and then like I wind up sketching him because like I can't always get out to a drawing session, so I'm like if he's playing or something, I'll just grab my sketchbook and just like make little doodles and things, and I'm like collecting them, to I don't know, give to him someday, but it's just
Aw.
been like having my own little
Oh,
reference at home. So like I don't know. That's been a
That's
really,
awesome.
really
that could
fun.
be such a sweet gift.
Your
Oh,
paintings are
good idea.
beautiful, by the way.
Awesome.
But it's
Yeah.
getting better like as he's getting older and more practice. Because in the beginning I was like, your proportions are so weird. Like
You're a blob.
little lump.
They're like the best life drawing reference, though. Like, you really learn how to draw really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
Right.
It's very fun as they get older too. Where you see the lights turning on, and as animators, we're supposed to be conveying like what the character is thinking and expressing that outward. And with kids, it's very just genuine and plain on their face. It's absolutely beautiful for observation.
Until they
Yeah.
get a little older and then they want to trick you.
Oh,
Can't wait. Hard mode.
Yeah. It's like yesterday we were talking about like what the definition of what like imagination and fantasy is. Uh and it's like the question was, are mermaids real? And my daughter's like, yeah.
Duh.
And they're like, so they live in the ocean? She's like, yeah. But she knows they don't. And so we kept asking her all these other questions, and every answer was yes, but like deadpan. Like she was like totally into it. Like she's trying to sell it. So I like watching them to learn how they're changing their behavior to try and get a reaction out of us. Because toddlers do the same thing, but then as they start speaking to you, it becomes a little bit more evolved.
I would like to hear a little bit about your time on Last of Us 2, because I do recall seeing a little bit about mocapping a baby.
Oh, I'm an adult baby. Yes, we mostly um so actually I did request to work on a specific section in that game, which is what we call the farm, and where Ellie and Dina are there raising their like 8-month-old. And I was like, I need to be on that. Like I had a baby. I know how babies move and like how you carry them and like what's going to make sense. And I was like, please let me be on this level. and it was very story driven and not a lot. There wasn't no game, like not really any gameplay. So I requested to be on that level, and I got that level, and so I got to be a part of the mocap shoots for how do we mocap a baby? Well, you're not going to put a baby in a mocap suit. That's not going to work. I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, I had some ideas, and we ended up using them on stage, and I would stand in and like kind of be a placeholder for the actor so that she could put her arm around me, retarget that data, make it all small and baby-like, and then adjust the poses to make it look more like a baby. And we just shot a lot of different things, but all using an adult.
Wow. I'm impressed about the
similar for
retargeting.
Jack. Scaling is
Yeah.
absolutely magic with mocap. But we did some similar stuff with Jack and Abigail for Red Dead as well, and it's just so fun. It's really special that you were able to bring that special input. Like we're in the age of video game dads right now, and there's a lot of input to go around for that. But hey, moms are here. It's our time. Talk to us. We'll tell you about it. It just feels like
it was fun.
I'm glad. I'm so happy you got to do that, and that we actually
like
got to see it in game.
I don't know if you guys like wore your babies, like had an ergo or like a sling or anything, but like the best thing
so bad.
Get work done because your hands are free. You don't have to carry them all the time. But like we had that in the game too, because there's a section where you have to herd sheep. I'm like, well, you're not going to herd a sheep by carrying a baby. Like that doesn't make any sense. You might do it with the baby like in a carrier and
strap them in.
But so like, having some knowledge of how those things work and like how the baby's supposed to be positioned. So we had to scan the wrap around the baby for that section. So they were like, we don't know, the character artists were like, we don't know how this works. I was like, okay, like they got like a baby doll and like a wrap, and I got the baby in there and the legs up and the butt down and cinched the little tie, and then we got it all perfect, and then we did the 3D scan for the model. But so yeah,
how
I got to be
long
part of
was
all
it
that.
since you had a baby that you remembered to do that? Like
I was in knots trying to get my wrap
wrapping
on.
is like a science that I've already forgotten.
It's like you're sailing a ship,
No, this was a sling. This was one of the ring slings, but the wraps, yeah, no, that takes. I did that too. That takes a long time, but I don't know if you forget wearing a baby. Like it was such a big part. I did it so long for so many months. It was like such a nice time when they were little, having them
good
so
bonding.
Yeah.
That's like something in general. Like I want to make sure anyone that's planning to have kids, like just really enjoy that time. That bonding time.
Yeah.
Like it is so important, and I'm glad people told me to, because like I tried my best to make it like count, but like work is important and all, but that time is just sacred with your child.
Your identity will go through a lot of changes, and you'll be processing a lot because your life was one way before, and I can't express more how much just as soon as you see that little kid pop out of you, it's like your brain chemistry changes and your world flips upside down. It's indescribable. It really is.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. I know that it's easy to complain about like how hard things have been this past year, but there have been some really great things about being home with family. And now it's like when I'm away from my kids, they like miss me so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say like not necessarily just as an animator, but like I feel like as just an artist, like I feel like I've gotten more stories, in general. Like I feel like before my son was born, like I was always interested in like making comics and like telling stories, but I just didn't know what to talk about. But then now that my son's here, it's like it's just coming out. Like it's just there's just so many things about like my son that I'm just so excited about, and like you say, like seeing the light come on in his eyes and everything. It's just gonna keep getting better, which is really awesome because he's only like 2. So I'm like so excited about all of that.
think there was a GDC talk a while ago about seeing the world like a baby. So it's very fun. It's very fun to watch them learn. And when you try to think of how they're seeing it, you're looking at everything around you in a completely different perspective.
I always thought they were pretty much like little aliens are teaching to be earthlings, you know? They come out, they don't know what gravity is. You're teaching them, like when you shush them, it's supposed to remind them of your heartbeat, right? So they're learning how to slowly like live in this world. And then eventually you're teaching them societal rules and how to walk, you know, like,
and not kill themselves all the time.
Oh, yeah. 5 minutes at a time to focus on anything because, you know, someone's deciding I'm going to jump off the couch right now, or, ooh, what's this outlet do? It's like, oh boy.
And if you missed one outlet with those plugs, they're going to find it. Like,
yeah, every time. Every time. It's a lot. It's a lot. I know now. I definitely plan my work to like. I feel like I'm doing another completely different job of just like taking notes and documenting things because I'm anticipating being pulled away at any moment. So it's like when you sit down to work, it's like I'll go as efficiently as possible, but it's a lot to juggle, and you're not only perceiving the world in many different ways all at once, and trying to, you know, work, keep your kid alive, have a relationship, all that stuff. It's just it's really super. You're super, moms. You're super. Oh, are we over time? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
for having us.
Thank you.
And thank you, Katie.
There is one thing I want to say before we go. First of all, thank you everyone for tuning in and meeting just a few of our community's animated moms. For everyone looking to start your own family, I hope that us being here can show you that despite all the challenges that parenthood entails, it's transformative and so special. And as lonely and as isolating as it can feel sometimes, we are here. And I do want to highlight one of the people doing the work to bring more voices into animation. Leanne, if you can introduce the Animation Diversity Foundation, I would really love to get that out there.
Yeah, we're a group of animators that are like we want to provide educational and professional support to underrepresented groups, which also includes new parents, by the way. And we are in the middle of wrapping up our first round of mentorship programs. So I believe Katie and Marianne actually have, they're one of their mentors. So if we'll be having a second round of mentorship available later this year. So keep an eye on our Twitter and our website, animfund.org, if you want to, if you are interested in these sorts of mentorship opportunities.
Thank you, Leanne. And thank you again, Mike, Lana, Julie, Anim State, and Animation Exchange for creating the space for us. We love you all. Thanks again. Be safe, wear a mask because your video game moms told you to.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
And then just shortly, we will have Christian and Matt's Q&A. Thanks, everyone.